everyone and welcome back. Today we'll be diving into the Veeam Backup for AWS web interface and explore each tab and web page and understand the functions and features they offer. When you log in into your Veeam Backup for AWS, this is what you're going to be greeted with. This dashboard is really helpful to help us govern and see the health of our backup and recovery. To start, here on the top left, I can see whether I've had any failures or warnings in the last 24 hours. I've got 11 successes, 3 warnings, and 4 failed. So I might want to look into that. I can click here on View Session Logs and see what happened and troubleshoot it. So for instance, I can see that the failed task here is related to the EC2 policy replication. If I click on failed, I can view the full list of tasks executed during the operation. And also, if I click on protected items, I'll see the list of instances processed during the operation. Next, on the top center, we can see our successful policy tasks. We have the number of snapshots, snapshot replicas, backups, and archive backups successfully created by backup policies during a specific time period. The past 24 hours is the default, but we can change it to look over the past week, the past month, and year. We can easily see that all our backups have been successful and also our snapshots, but none of our replicas were successful. We also get a percentage of these to see the success and failure rate. Now on the top right, we can see also our protected workloads. And as with the policy tasks, we can filter this to the last 24 hours, last week, last month, and last year. This provides guidance on how many instances we have versus how many have been successfully protected over the applied filter period. Again, this is applied on a percentage basis to easily see what we are protecting and what we are missing. The storage usage on the bottom left is fairly self-explanatory. It gives an overview of how much storage we are using across our Amazon S3 buckets. We can also see where and how much data is being stored in S3, in S3 Glacier, and S3 Glacier Deep Archive. Now within the top policies section in the bottom center, we can filter based on types, so snapshots or backup or archive. It provides us an understanding of how long the backups and snapshots are taking and what the percentage of change is. Finally, under bottleneck overview, on the bottom right, we can check to see how the backup infrastructure is operating. It is there to help us right-size our environments, and it is kind of in line with day 2 operations. With this information, we can answer all these questions. Is our policy sizing doing okay, or do we have too many machines included in a policy? Are my workers and CPU quotas being exhausted? Or do I maybe need to improve the performance of those EC2 instances so I can get better backup and recovery? Now let's go to resources. Here you can see the list of AWS resources that Veeam Backup for AWS has scanned and collected based on the backup policy settings. This list will include all the specific type of resources, such as EC2, RDS, and EFS. Next, under policies, we can create policies, start policies, stop, edit them, view the info, remove, and import or export the policies. We have 4 different tabs, so we can protect different workloads on AWS. Now, under the Protected Data tab, we can view and manage our backed up data. Again, we have the 4 different tabs, and we can see the restore points. We can also click on that and see that is healthy and the retention. We can filter them, we can see what type is and the restore point, so we can really be granular on all the information. Finally, the session logs is where we can track real-time statistics of all running and completed operations. We can click on the status to see what happened. We can also click on protected items to see the list of instances processed during the operation. Let's move on to configuration. This Getting Started page has the configuration wizard that I showed in the initial configuration video. If we move to accounts, here we have the IAM roles that we can create, edit or remove. We also have the SMTP accounts, which is where we add the accounts that will be used to connect to an SMTP server so we can configure email notification settings. And the last tab is where we can create new accounts and assign one of 3 different roles to give access to our appliance. It's very simple, you just click add, then you can choose if you want to create an account within Veeam Backup for AWS or leverage an identity provider. Then click next, give it a name. And the roles that you can assign are portal administrator, which has full administrative access to the entire appliance, or portal operator, which would allow people to do backup and recovery operations, but none of the configuration piece. And finally, the restore operator role, which they would only have access to perform recoveries and not create backup. This role-based access control feature is great to give out access to things like application owners and developer teams so they can almost do self-service recovery. You also have the opportunity to enable multi-factor authentication here, so you can add an extra layer of security. Now moving to repositories. Here are the S3 buckets that we use to store our backups. And then workers are the data movers that live on EC2 instances and perform our backups. This is the main tab where we have created already a worker configuration. In the profile tab, you can add custom sets of worker profiles to specify instance types of worker instances that will be deployed in different regions. And finally, under the Advanced tab, you can define the FLR relay configuration and the specific settings of those workers. Moving to settings, you have several different tabs again. Starting with retention, we can configure global retention settings to specify for how long the obsolete snapshots and the session logs data must be retained in the configuration database. After that, under certificates, this is where you can replace the TLS certificate that is currently being used to secure traffic between the browser and the backup appliance with another trusted TLS certificate. Under the email tab, you can enable email notifications for automated delivery of backup policy results and daily reports. You can choose whether you want to configure and employ basic SMTP or modern auth authentication to configure your mail server. Under the time zone tab, you can set the time zone that you want Veeam Backup for AWS to run daily reports and perform all data protection and disaster recovery operations. Next, under the Identity Provider tab, you can configure SSO settings and then add user accounts that will be able to log in into the Veeam Backup for AWS using single sign-on. So if you've used or are using AWS IAM Identity Center, this is the same process. And finally, under the Configuration Backup tab, you can backup and restore the configuration database that stores the data collected from Veeam Backup for AWS. You can select the repository and create a manual backup, or you can instruct Veeam Backup for AWS to do it automatically on a regular basis. So if the backup appliance goes down for some reason, you can reinstall it quickly and restore its configurations from the backup. You can also use a configuration backup to migrate the configuration of one backup appliance to another backup appliance in AWS. Now finally, the licensing tab has our current license, and I'm using the free license, which allows me to protect up to 10 instances, and the license usage to see what resources are consuming my license. Here, under support information, if you need any technical support, that's where you need to go. The support info has links to all the useful web pages that you need. And then under updates, you can check if there are any pending updates, and you can also see the history of update installation performed on the backup appliance. And finally, under download logs, you can collect the logs for a time interval, and then you can share that with the support engineer that's helping on your case. And that's it. I hope this overview was helpful for you, and I'm excited to get started by using Veeam Backup for AWS. I hope to see you soon in my next video, and don't forget to give a like and subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. Bye!